Hello. Excuse me. Hello and welcome to today's live stream. Sorry it's a Sunday. Yesterday, just got a little bit busy with errands and things around the house. But that's why the weekend's 2 days, right? So we have Sunday live stream, which I haven't done in a while. But yeah, welcome. If you're new to the stream, if you want to see more of my work, you can check out my Instagram, justwondering.brad on Instagram. And if you want to purchase any of the flies that you've seen me tie on the stream, you can check out the Etsy shop, Studio 1213 on Etsy. All right, let's get right into it. Let's see. Focus. There we go. All right, how do we go to this? Sorry for the Hitchcock focus there. All right. So we are working on the Black Doctor as described by Kelson, but apparently originated by Wright. Last week we did the body, and this week we are going to finish it off with the wing and all the extra trimmings. So the underwing calls for golden pheasant tippet, but in strips. It's a little bit different. So normally when we do like a tippet underwing, we tie in the whole feather. That's typically how we do it, like in today's like modern style. But this calls for it in strips. So that means just tying it in as if it slips, I guess, of tippet. So I'm just going to pull some tippets off this large, more or less symmetrical tippet. And we're going to tie them in just like, any other strip wing. So I hope everybody has been doing well, especially in the run-up to the holidays. I know I'm very excited. I work with schools. As part of my job, I work with our public and private schools in my district, and they are on break, finally. So, get a little bit of extra time off. Now, as usual, I'm going to have to build up a little extra bulk because of the J throat. So, for those of you who have never worked with J, it has a relatively thick rachis or stem, and so when you tie it in as a throat, it does tend to create a little extra like bump right at the head of the fly at the tie-in point or tie-off point. Now I don't expect these slips to stay as slips. Golden pheasant tippet is not the best at staying married as a slip. So I do expect there to be a little bit of mixing effect, I guess you would say. But and of course, they're not. It's not like swan. It's a little bit more of a brittle material, so it's not like swan where you can like do like a full shaping of it. So we'll kick up. Whatever. Again, the idea on a fly like this is you just want to be able to see a little bit of everything in layers. You don't necessarily need to see the whole thing. Certainly, when you tie in a whole tippet, you don't expect to see the whole tippet. So, all right. I think the way that the description actually says it is in strands. That just means in slips instead of whole feathers. All right. Now it also says pintail at this point in the description. I'm actually going to use the pintail as a side and not as part of the underwing, just because the pintail that I'm using is very nice, and I want it to be seen a little bit better. Um, and also because the side also calls for galena or speckled guinea. Um, I think that contrast to the spotted versus the barred is kind of a nice thing on the sides of the fly. So I'm going to tie the pintail in as a side rather than part of part of the wing. Um, so that means we'll go straight into the main wing, and the main wing is um, blue and yellow swan, mottled turkey, and red macaw. Of course, for all of this, we're going to use dyed turkey and regular mottled turkey. Um, and then it also calls for golden pheasant tail on top. Of course, we're going to put that on the very top, just as one big bar as usual. Um, so we're not using swan; we're using dyed turkey because it has longer fibers and it ties a little easier. And we're using red dyed uh, um, turkey for the macaw because I don't have any red macaw. Um, Actually, no, wrong. I do, but again, the fibers are also shorter, and they tie a little less well. Although macaw actually marries very well into wing, um, they do tend to be thicker fibers, and so you have to be careful what you pair them with. They can be a little bit challenging, so I prefer to use dyed turkey. With that, let's make some wings. Let's see. Right side first. So I think what I'm going to do is a repeating pattern. Because there are so few things in this wing, I'm going to do 5 fibers of each. Um, and then 4 fibers, I think, maybe 6, of the golden pheasant tail. Sorry. I was just looking because my blue turkey, I think, I've actually got 2 right hand feathers. I just noticed this. But we'll do two like a repeating uh, mix. So it'll be 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, and then 4 fibers of golden pheasant on top. I think that's how we're gonna do it. We'll mix it up. We'll see if we like it. If we like it, we'll keep it. If we don't like it, we can always take the wing apart and remarry it to something we do like. And again, the key to all of this is having clean hands. Now this is going to be the last live stream for this year. I'm going to take I'll be off for the next 2 weeks, doing family stuff. Fortunately, don't have to travel too far, but we'll be doing family. And we'll be doing family. We'll be doing family stuff responsibly. Our family is all vaccinated and boosted, and uh, we know that they are responsible when it comes to their social activities, which is nice. Um, so let's see. The order usually that I go is red, yellow, blue, and I think we'll stick with that. So red on the bottom, yellow, and again, always we start by marrying together the full width slips that we've cut from the feather, and then just peel off one, two. Did I only got 4 yellow? Hmm. Excuse me. I may have only got 4 yellow. Find this off. All right, here's a trick. If you need to add an extra fiber, you can just marry it back into the feather. Cut an extra fiber. Oop. The hardest part about classic Atlantic salmon flies is not so much the tying, right? So I say this quite frequently whenever I'm at shows or if I'm doing demonstrations. Tying a classic Atlantic salmon fly is just like tying, you know, a Catskill dry, a Bergman wet. It's just bigger. You do more of it. The biggest thing about classic Atlantic salmon flies is learning what to do when you make mistakes, kind of the tricks, the things to do. Because when you make a mistake on a bigger fly, it's a bigger mistake. So knowing that if you are missing a fiber, you can always just marry it back into the you took it off the feather. You can put it back on, trim an extra fiber if you need it. That way you don't lose it, and also you preserve the structure. So you want the tips to be aligned. Again, like I said last, working on the silver gray, the precise angle of the tips on these feathers doesn't matter quite so much because you can always change it. Um, it's more that the tips are aligned, um, and have a similar angle. So red, yellow, blue. And take off the extra dark mottled, which will help break up. Now, it just occurred to me that we do have, I think it'll be fine. It'll look good. It did occur to me that dark mottled turkey and um, golden pheasant tail are kind of similar pattern, or they appear similar when you just kind of look at them in a wing. But I think these are actually different enough. We should be okay. So we'll just take off the excess red from the bottom and move it to the top of the wing, or top of the growing wing. I think this dark mottled turkey is brown enough, whereas golden pheasant tail tends to be orangish in color. I think that'll be enough contrast. So, all right, so that's kind of our basic repeating unit. I think that'll look good. I don't actually like the angle. I'm going to see if I can change this angle a little bit by adding a little bit more bulk here. This underwing just kind of is a little bit high. Don't want to add too much bulk, but the other thing though is to remember with this fly is we are going to be adding a dubbed, red wool dubbed head, or in this case mohair, of course. So you know, uh, a little extra bulk won't be too noticeable. Shouldn't be. Right. That's probably as good as it's going to get. Again, hopefully the main wing will push this down a little bit. But it is an underwing. Um, whether or not when these flies were designed, the underwing was actually meant to show underneath. And you have to imagine that a lot of these flies would have been mixed wings anyway. Um, even if they were sold as built wings, I would imagine, anecdotally, we know or we've heard that a lot of fishermen would mix their wings when they got to the pond, the stream or the pond. So you know, all right. So that is the wing. That is the near wing. That'll look good. Now we have to build the far wing. Just the opposite. All right. So same process. Just making sure. So again, full width slips. Let's use bodkin here. Use a thinner bodkin. It's a little easier. Red, yellow, blue. Red, yellow, blue. Take the extra red off the bottom. Top. And the key to making married wings easy is good quality material and dry, clean hands. And if you have trouble with your material, you can try washing your material. Sometimes the dyes that are used, if you're using dyed material, can contribute to um, matting down the barbs, especially if it's like a bulk dye process. Um, your material might just need to be washed. Um, so that's something you can try. You just use a little bit of detergent. Dawn. You don't want to scrub your feathers. You just kind of want to, um, swish them around a little bit and then let them dry. And then you want to steam them straight. So your feathers will come out matted after you wash them. Then you put them over a little bit of light steam, and until they return back to normal. You of course should dry them in between, and that usually helps. I don't normally have that kind of problem with this material because it comes. Most of this stuff is from John McClane. Um, Unless it comes from a craft store. um, as I say, there are instead of buying like hairline, just to name a brand, but if you're looking for like peacock feathers or peacock curl feathers or like swords, or I've talked a lot about the craft store guinea feathers. Uh, get those. Um, for And if you don't know about this, craft store guinea feathers, for whatever reason, tend to have more of the spotted guinea, which is what you want for classic Atlantic salmon flies. I don't know why, but like if you just buy like a normal hairline pack of guinea feathers, you're gonna get the spotted one, or the spotted ones, not the speckled ones, for the most part. But I've really found that like the guinea feathers that you can find in like Michaels tends to have more of the speckled feathers than the spotted feathers. Um, Again, don't know why that is, but in classic Atlantic salmon fly tying, you want the speckled feathers, not the spotted feathers, usually. All right, so we have our two wings mixed up. Um, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, you can kind of see how the butt ends here are a little uneven. I'm just going to trim them. These extra long slips, if they get tangled up, they can cause the wing to twist while you tie it on. That's not. That's a little bit inconvenient and not a whole lot of fun. So I'm just going to trim them so they're shorter or closer in length to the other ones. Same thing with the other wing. Um, there is there's an interesting technique for classic Atlantic salmon flies in which you take the wings and you put the wings back to back as you would to tie them in. This was in a 1997 fly tire magazine, by the way. So you put the wings back to back as you would, and then what you do is you trim the butt ends of both wings equal, and then you run a bead of head cement along each one individually, and then you tie it in. And the idea behind that was to kind of emulate having the feather, the fibers being like still attached to the stem or the rachis of the feather. Now, in my experience, it's been completely unnecessary. But what it does actually is it allows you to use the butt ends to judge whether your wingtips are still aligned, which is actually kind of a useful indicator, especially when you put the wing on and you have it all covered. You're covering it with your fingertips. You can't quite see it, so that could be useful. I can see how it'd be useful, but I've never had a problem with the butt ends splitting um, when I didn't want them to. So not 100% certain how incredibly useful that is, but so we're just going to position the wing on top of the fly. I'm going to use a little bit of saliva as usual, just to lubricate the process and help. So I did one soft loop. I'm using the weight of the bobbin, and I'm going to lift the butt ends and the wing. And what that does is it creates a compressed, you know, region, compressed area between them. And this finger right here pinching is really important because that prevents the wing from collapsing. So I want to hold it vertically. And I'm just going to let the weight of the bobbin dictate the compression. So I'm just going to check my work. Not too bad. A little bit of folding on this side, on the near side. And it looks like a pretty good compression on the other side, so I'm going to call that good. So I'm going to give one wrap with extra tension just to hold it in place. Shape the wing just a little bit more because I want it to be shapely. There we go. So not bad. I'm going to grab some wax my thread as normal. And secure the wing. So mounting a large chunky wing like this is all about compression. I mean, that's true of any slip wing fly, like a Bergman wet. But you're managing it, so you're managing it on one side this way by pinching here. You're preventing anything that you're pinching with this finger from collapsing, while you're encouraging the rest of the wing to collapse by lifting the butt ends. Um, so you're just managing the forces on the wing in order to get it to collapse vertically rather than, you know, bilaterally or, this way. It's one of those things where, if you weren't holding it this way, the wing would tend to want to rise up, because when you compress something that is squishy, it wants to squish evenly from both sides, whereas you really only want it to squish from the top. Squish is being a technical term. All right, so I'm going to, yeah, and you can see even when I pull a little bit of tension on the wing wants to pull up and also twist. So, yeah, those are the forces that we're kind of fighting against in this process. So I'm going to give it one wrap with wax thread. Again, I'm going to just give it a little bit of extra shape just to give it that nice curve I like to see. And that kind of curving, that hump here, that's kind of a modern aesthetic. That's something that we kind of have come to in our built wings. Um, if you look at like a mixed wing, it tends to be more of a fan shape or conical shape wing. Um, so I'm just going to trim everything. Small snips, because taking one large chunk would put, torque on the wing. We'll just bind down the butt ends with wax thread all the way to the front. Again, there's going to be a dubbed wool head, so okay. Um, let's sides, which are going to be again pintail and speckled galena. Let's see. I had my pintail out. And we're going to marry them as if it were like a teal and summer duck side. Actually, this might actually be teal instead of pintail. No, yeah, I guess pintail. Like I said, and in most flies, if you're just using, a single barred duck, so if you just have a recipe that calls for teal, you can probably get away with using gadwall, teal, or pintail interchangeably. You will, notice a difference though if you have a fly that calls for, for example, gadwall in the tail in part of the veiling and um, teal as well. They are very subtly different. So, you know, just they're not quite interchangeable unless they're being used on their own, and then you probably won't notice the difference. I'm actually going to use my teal feather here because my pintail is not quite long enough. I got some very nice teal. And we're going to do the thing where you reverse your thread in between. Useful trick to know. I'm going to tie the teal a little bit longer in the side just because I have longer fibered teal. So this is one of the sides. And the speckled galena is just a little bit short just because speckled galena actually doesn't come in very long fibered feathers. So that. So tie on one side, reverse your thread, tie on the other. That's a simple trick to help make sure the duck or the galena lays flat against the wing. Hear me talk about it just about every time I mount something on a wing like that. Just trim. But it really does. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to slip the thread under the blind eye, between the blind eye and the gut, and reverse. A couple turns just to bring it back to the tie-in point, and tie in the other side. Yeah. So I'm probably sick of hearing me say it, but it is a good trick because it evens out. Soft materials are probably harder to tie in, just because they are more susceptible to torque. So again, tying them in by reversing your thread just helps even out the forces on them. Again, I'm tying in the teal just a little bit longer than the guinea, just because the guinea is shorter in fiber. It's more important that you get a flavor of everything. Yeah. Of course, you can use the butt ends just to maneuver the. Let me just check. Yeah, that's fine. Right. I'm going to trim. Down the butt ends. Reverse my thread again. All right. Finally, we have the bronze mallard roof, which we'll do as a roof, a true roof. So I could have tied in my bronze mallard right there when I did the side. So essentially, it would have just been a third layer of duck on top of the teal there. But I much prefer to tie it in as a true roof, using the shell method that people who tie a lot of spay flies will be familiar with. I just think it produces a nicer look, and the roof is less likely to split along the top. Uh, so I think I can get one more roof out of these bronze mallard feathers. It's going to be a little bit of a short roof just because these are smaller bronze mallard feathers. But as always, the important part of the bronze mallard isn't the bronze part, but the gray part. And these have pretty good. These are pretty good feathers for that. So, um, and again, if you're new to the channel and you're wondering why the gray part of the bronze mallard is the important part, it's because that is the most. It's the most flexible part, I guess, is the way to describe it. It's also the part that keeps the feather married together, because that's where the barbs are the most active. So essentially, what I've done is I've taken the bronze mallard and I've put it top to top, the two slips. So they're together along the top, and it's you can't. It's not quite like marrying together like the wing. It's where it's like hook and loop. It's like Velcro. This is more like taking two pieces of hook, and mashing them together. You can get kind of a little bit of Velcro action there, um, hook on hook action, I guess. Um, but it's not quite as strong of a connection as like hook and loop. So, um, but that's what keeps the roof together when you tie it in on top of the fly. So essentially, what I'm doing now is just putting it into shape. So I'm flexing it like this. That just helps it sit along the top of the wing like so. Again, that gray part right at the base of the bronze mallard is what's getting it over that hump. Fly. Um, one soft loop and just letting it compress. Then a little bit of a wiggle to make sure it's on the top of the wing. Couple of strong. Yep. Got a few stray fibers here. Hang on. Oh, I see. It is a little bit more fiddly of a method just because, again, you're trying to tie in fairly large segments of feather at the same time. Um, and if you don't get them quite right, they can not sit right. But like I said, I think it's worth the aggravation because I do think it does produce a slightly nicer outcome. All right, these are too short. And that teal is very strongly going in that direction. So So let's see if we can find some more bronze medal. Again, those were a little bit short. Ah, that's a nice feather. Now if I can find a matching. Yeah, so if you look on a bronze mallard feather, you'll see there's this gray part here, and that's the really kind of flexible part that makes for a good roof. And the bronze bit is actually pretty brittle, is the way I would describe it, and it doesn't marry together well. So that does make um, that that large bronze, having a large amount of bronze is pretty. I mean, that's what makes a bronze mallard roof a bronze mallard roof. But it does make that roof more challenging to put together. So it's just a matter of finding that kind of sweet spot. It's too sweet. And having that balance of gray, easily married fibers and bronze, good looking fibers. All right. It's a much better pair. We'll solve the problem of the teal, but that roof is much better. So I'll just bind that down. Um, all right. Next, a topping. And again, this is one of these toppings that I shaped a couple days ago. So I'm going to pull off all the extra fibers. And then I'm going to take my pliers and just flatten the tie-in point. That just keeps the crest from rolling. Then we're going to give it a little bit of a kink, just right in the tie-in area, so that when you tie it in, it'll follow the curve of the wing. Wax my thread first. So the thing about using black thread for the head is I can't remember if I waxed it or not. Apparently I didn't. You can use the stem of the uh, crest as like a tiller, and pull it one way or the other. All right, looks a mess. Again, when you tie stuff on, you got your fingers all over it. Looks a mess, but when you can always, once you're done, you can always preen it out into, a more ordered thing. The important thing is when you tie things in, that they are tied in the way and the direction that you want. You can, I guess that's one of the kind of, myths or misconceptions about classic Atlantic summerflies is that they're super fragile. And the fact of the matter is they're not. They're meant to be, or they were designed to be fished. They're tied to be fished. So, they're not fragile. It's just, when you handle them, you might shift the wing a bit. But if it's tied in well, you can always just preen it back into shape. And we'll do that. We'll do that for the picture. I probably won't spend too much time on it on stream. But the picture will look nice. All right. Just got to add the horns, dub the head, call it a day. So I always tie on the far side horn first because it's easier to match the near side horn to the angle and tie in of the far side horn. A couple turns of thread. I have to re-wax my thread, of course. And again, it looks a mess, especially the duck. But again, that's because the duck is a fairly soft material. It's easily, pushed out of place. But if it's tied in well, you can always preen it back into whatever shape you want it to. So not too concerned about it. Wax my thread. And then I'm going to trim. horns. Just pinch everything together. Give a couple of good whacks with wax thread. Bring it back into my tie-in place, tie-in point. Wax my thread one more time. Now, having a base layer wax thread when doing like a dubbed head or even a dubbed body is really useful because it does help the dubbing stick to the body, I find, in a little bit more of a solid manner. Again, we're not going for like a small head, a micro head on these flies because the head's a major part of the fly. The creator bothered to specify it um, in the recipe, so or in the pattern. So we want a good solid, well dubbed and if you have trouble with the dubbing sliding down the head, you can always, if you have a good base layer of wax thread, you just take the head, you pinch it, you let the wax melt under your body heat for a little bit, and then it should stay. So just wrap it up at the end just to make it nice and neat and tidy. And we will finish it. Put some feathers away just to get out of my way here. But finish this head and call it a day. All right. So like I said, once for the photo, I'll do a little bit more preening just to clean it up, make it look a little bit, put everything back in order. But even just using my fingers here, I'm going to pull everything down. Actually, you know what? I'll just do it here. Got a little bit of time. It's a pretty short stream today. I do appreciate everyone hanging out this year. This has been a great year for the channel. Really kind of the first year that I've been more consistent about streaming, which has been great. And we've seen some pretty good channel growth. I think last I looked, we were up to 68 subscribers, which is great. We have some goals for the New Year's. Would love to be able to develop some more like filmed content. I'm not entirely certain how to do it. Don't have a great video editing software set up. So if any of you have suggestions or things that you've used successfully, would love to hear those suggestions. And certainly if you would like, certain kinds of tutorials or certain topics for those videos, I will of course take suggestions. Can't guarantee that I'll be able to film them, but we'll do our best to figure out how to do that. Bit of a learning curve here. Like I said, I do enjoy the live streams because there's not too much prior prep other than pulling out all my materials for them. The other thing that I would love to do is I'd love a display case back behind me, just to be able to show off some of the flies that I've tied and the flies that I've been sent. I have a lot of friends that I've traded flies with over the years, especially at shows and things. So anyway, so yeah, this is the near side, or this is the near side now. What I see when I'm tying. Um, so yeah, nice fly. Again, this is one of the lesser seen variants of the Black Doctor. I think the one that I've seen the most commonly is the one with the claret body hackle. I believe that's out of oh, that is out of, or at least described, I think, Price Tannet. Um, Although I'm sure there are other variants like Francis, I'm sure. But anyway, um, so thanks for hanging out. And yeah, happy holiday season, whatever holidays you celebrate. Merry Christmas for me. And I'll see you all in the new year. Next 2 weeks, probably. Next week's will definitely not be streaming. Um, After that, we'll see how the new year starts out. There'll be some challenges for me at work, for sure. So may not stream right away. Um, Definitely kind of entering a challenging season for the schools that I work with. So we'll see what they need in terms of support before. But hopefully we'll be able to stream again. Have some goals for this coming year in terms of the channel, and the content. We'll always be active on Instagram. May not always be posting flies, but I'll always be active there. Um, Brad, if you want to follow, appreciate it. And yeah, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for all the watch time and subscriptions this year, and appreciate it. And see you in the new year. Have a good one.